At this point, I've been able to look at about a dozen custom LEGO Star Wars sets from Timmy, aka Republic Bricks, but this time he upped the ante and sent me over $5,000 worth of custom LEGO sets in one go. And in this video, we are going to take a look at the biggest, probably the best, the Jedi Temple. It's a $1,600 custom set, and that is obviously going to price out all but like 5 of you. But it is so cool, and I am really excited to look at it regardless, and I think a lot of people get a lot of enjoyment from looking at it. The set also has 3,851 pieces, so it's a pretty big boy, and I do have a special code just for my viewers, Newport Beach, and that'll get you $200 off of that very expensive price tag. So if a Jedi Temple is something you want, this is definitely an option for you. It is, like I said, very expensive. So in this video, we'll find out if that is worth the absolutely insane price tag. The entire build is on top of a gray base plate, which is included brand new in the bag. Very good to see there. So that is basically the size of what you're getting. So if you're trying to figure out, will it fit on your shelf or in your display space, just a gray base plate, if you have one laying around, or 48 by 48 studs is the size you're going to have to deal with, which is pretty dang big. That's just not going to fit back there on my shelves. And then we have the temple itself, which is, oh my god, I mean, this is a lot of pieces. I don't think I can understate like how hefty of a bag this is, and there is a lot of different parts here, and everything looks pretty clean from my view here. And of course, part of what you're paying for when you pay $1,600 for a set like this is somebody has already gone in and color organized literally everything, so that will make the building process somewhat easier with, I think, nearly 4,000 pieces. So that's definitely a very important part of it to me, because I would have said no to getting this if all the pieces were not organized in some sort of way that made sense. So this is nice. So I think I'm supposed to go set this down in the pool so that I can get used to the temperature of the water here. Oh, wait. No, that's just for fish. Here are all of the parts laid out. I'll give you a pretty close view of all of the bags so you can get an idea of the condition of the parts. And to me, just kind of in a once-over glance, everything looks pretty shiny new. And again, for $1,600, you would very much want that. So pretty happy with the way everything looked. Like, it would be very apparent to me if something in here was like really yellow. So that's what I'm basically looking for when I say that, and that's not something I'm seeing, so that's definitely a good thing. I am not particularly looking forward to building 4,000 pieces the week of Thanksgiving, but I think the end product is going to be so phenomenal, it'll be worth it. So let me build this. I'll let you know if there's any major hiccups along the way. There wasn't, except for the time where I thought I was missing a bunch of pieces, but the pieces were actually right next to me for 10 minutes. Actually, there was a couple missing pieces on this set at the end of the day, which for a set with 4,000 pieces hand sorted, I think missing 2 is acceptable. It's not optimal. Of course, optimal would be having everything, but I don't know. I think I'm willing to give a little there. I mean, obviously it's a review. You can come away with your own opinion on that. But anyway, at the very top of the temple here, we have the council room, or what would be the council room. Obviously, this is far from minifig scale. It's a micro scale build, essentially, with a full minifig interior, but externally speaking, we have the council area at the top of the spire there, which looks pretty good. We have these 4 separate spires. I'm not the biggest fan of the antenna design on these, mostly because of the way that they free spin. So when you move the set and you do things, these things become out of whack, and I don't like when things aren't orderly. So you try to make them orderly and they just spin so easily that they get knocked out of place, and it's kind of annoying. The other thing is that this will fall off kind of easily, so that is a thing. I mean, ultimately, this is a custom set that is mostly for display, but if you did plan on using this as like a playset primarily, definitely worth knowing that. The rest of the roof is sparsely detailed, but detailed nonetheless, and I think it looks pretty good there. Certainly something you could maybe add more to, as the actual top of the Jedi Temple is pretty densely packed with random bits and bobs, but this one just goes for a pretty clean design, which I ended up liking. As we move down the side of the temple, you can see the walls of it are done in tan, and that's the thing with the temple. It's kind of tan, it's kind of gray. I think it's kind of up to the artist's idea of what color they think the temple is when someone makes a temple, either in Lego or paints one or does whatever. But tan is the color that was gone with here. I think either is acceptable. And it has a pretty good design for it, especially for something that's modular that's going to be coming apart. You wouldn't really be able to tell that it comes apart if it weren't for these unfortunately slightly large gaps with just the way the build is. Maybe if they had added some studs here that connected, it would kind of hold that a little closer and tighter, but it just, there's a slight gap there that is somewhat annoying, but I think it's generally fine. But again, this is a review, so I got to point out the good and the bad. You can see down the side here, everything comes together to a nice point. There's some studs added on here, which is pretty nice because it makes it feel more Lego. It's like something a real Lego set would do, and it kind of spices it up. You can see a few studs in here. I like the big red stripe down the front middle of the building. You'll find that on all sides of it. All three other sides are exactly the same, and then the front side is the side that is like different. It has the 3 statues out front, as well as the entryway that Anakin would walk through with all of his 501st troopers to enter the temple. And again, the exterior of this is like a micro scale, so obviously you can't actually walk Anakin through the entryway. Now, the base plate around the temple is just tiled off, pretty much like it is on Coruscant, so that ends up looking pretty good. And you can see as we spin this around here, completely tiled off all the way around, and it looks pretty elegant from any side that you choose to display it from, although I wouldn't really understand why you just wouldn't display it from the front. But if you're wondering, yeah, you can display it 360 degrees and it's going to practically look the same. Now we got to get to the good stuff inside of the temple. You see, this whole top part comes right off, so we have full access to the interior of the temple here, and there is a lot of interior for the temple. In fact, there is 2 layers of interior for this Jedi Temple. We have our top layer here, which has a temple room. It's got a little holocron room here. We've got the bridge, and then we also have the hologram room in the back, and we'll take a closer look at those by pulling this entire section off. So all you have to do is literally lift on the handle, and the whole thing comes off, and that'll give you access to the bottom floor, which we'll take a look at after we go in depth on this top floor of the temple here. Pretty incredible modular build here to access everything inside the temple. I almost feel like Timmy could make a cheaper version of this that people could buy that is just the exterior bits of the temple for people that just want a temple to display but don't want all the extra stuff that comes inside of it. It's an option. I ran it by him. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it would significantly cut costs for those that don't care about all of this stuff. But for those that do, this is pretty dang cool. Let's start with the council room. So inside of here, we have the council room, which has 4 different seats for Jedi Council members. You can also bring in Anakin so that he can, give his talking and whatnot. But you also have a window to the outside. So just like if they were up in the top of that tower, you could see out behind them and see all the ships whizzing by. Obviously, that window is covered up when it's in its proper place, but it's pretty cool still to have the window there. I'm not exactly sure whose seats are whose, but I do have enough minifigures to fill them. So we have Obi-Wan Kenobi there. I'll put Ki-Adi-Mundi in the taller chair. We have Mace Windu for this middle chair. And then on the far right here, we have a Yoda who can't actually sit down, but his chair is spinny, so is Obi-Wan's, and then the other 2 are stationary. But yeah, a pretty nice council room. It's definitely very large, and like I said, you can bring Anakin in. There's a lot of floor space in there to have other Jedi standing around and talking to the council members and deliberating on whatever, so that's pretty nice. And then kind of hidden off to the side of that is a pretty neat little holocron room, I assume. I can't imagine it's anything else. That's what it looks like to me. It's just a small little build of studs. It's not the most exciting thing to me, but it is nice that it's there. Also hidden in this room is a little doorway here, which can open up. It doesn't go anywhere though, but I guess it's nice to have. It's some extra detail on the wall, essentially. To me, it doesn't really make much sense as a door though. Pulling away from there, near Ki-Adi-Mundi's chair, we have a couple of statues, and those lead up and into the hologram room. So we have the big hologram of a planet there. We also have a small display board and then a little statuette up above. You have some stairs that can go down into the room, and you can actually have Jedi sit around in the hologram room. It's a nice seating area, or stand around really. So like I said, with Anakin, you can bring him in here and have him stand there, and there's enough space for a couple of characters in there. It's not quite full size to what you see in episode episode 3, but it's a pretty cool representation of the room. The final area on this top floor is this bridge here. It's where Anakin and the 501st Troopers take out a bunch of the Jedi during Order 66, and the bridge is actually open to the, I guess, library below, and that is nice that it's actually a bridge, and you can see from below it's literally just open, and it even has some yellow pieces there, which I assume are supposed to represent lights shining down on the library below. So that's kind of nice. You have these pillars, which are decently designed. They are a little oddly set low, so when building this, it's a little bit odd to get them to connect properly, but yeah, I think generally it looks pretty good, especially when you have the two figures on there. So the entire bottom floor is the library, and then you have a couple of statues at the front here, which are actually in real Jedi Temple terms, I suppose, outside of the temple, but I talked to Timmy, and he said that they just wanted to have these big statues included in the set, so I thought that's pretty cool to have them in here. It's a decent place to put them if you're going to put them anywhere, and you can remove them. You can just pull them off of their base if you really don't want them in there, but yeah, they're there, and they look pretty dope. And then as far as the rest of the library, it looks really good. We'll take a closer look at it by removing the entire library from the inside of the temple there. So you just pull up on the thing just like you do for the second floor, and you can see you're left with the empty base below, really just the base plate there with a little bit of support for this so that it doesn't connect to the studs below and get stuck down there, because obviously it's intended to be removed from inside of there, and I don't think you really need to remove it from inside of there, but it's nice that the option is there. Like I said, you have these big Jedi statues at the front, which looks pretty cool. And then we also have the tables with the computers inside of here. We have a couple of seats on either side of those, basically for the desks to take a look at the archives. And then of course the library, everything is there. Easily the most grueling part of this 4,000 pieces was putting these together. It was just not very fun, and sometimes that's what you have to do to achieve a pretty dang good look for these. I mean, they do look very good, and you can see you have a hallway wide enough for figures to roam about. So we could perhaps have Obi-Wan roaming the halls of the library and taking a look at different things in the archives. And unfortunately, there is no librarian minifigure. That would have been a great inclusion for this one if he had that custom figure made for it. It would be really nice to have because the library is such a focal point of this build. You've also got kind of the Jedi statues in there, or the head busts of different Jedi. Obviously, they aren't actually represented. It's just gold heads, but the idea and concept is there, and I think it translates really nicely. It was brought to my attention that on one of Republic Brick's Instagram posts, he claimed that this Jedi Temple would be able to fit hundreds of minifigures, and I feel like I would be doing everyone a disservice if we didn't pull out a bunch of 501st Troopers and put that to the test. So I have 292 501st Troopers off to the side, and we are going to find out for real if this can fit hundreds of minifigures. So if you'll recall in episode 3, Anakin Skywalker came marching up the stairs of the temple and then eventually made his way inside of the temple, and then some clone troopers joined him to massacre all the Jedi. How about we just make it an even 100? Not bad, not bad. You know, that's actually a lot more than I thought would fit in there. We had a couple stragglers, had to pick them up just in the name of science, and I think we're well on our way to what anyone would define as hundreds. Not in the way that I think people would want to fit hundreds of figures in a build, but if you wanted to fit hundreds of figures within the Jedi Temple, I mean, it's certainly doable, right? That's 132 right there. And then I got another 160 clone troopers right here, so we'll dump a few more in here on this first level. We can reattach our second level like so. Putting this second level back on is pretty easy. Putting the first level back in is a pain, I will say that. But putting the second level back on can be pretty easy. It kind of depends. You can snag on different things from time to time, but for the most part, the second level is way easier to get back in than the first level. And of course, the roofing part of it is even easier. So we'll just dump all the rest of our clone troopers in here just to be sure. So this technically does fit hundreds of figures. You can see that this is not in any like practical way, but if you wanted to put 300 501st Troopers inside of the Jedi Temple, be my guest. So let's put the roof back on, and forget those are there, because now I have to put them all back on the base plate, and that's going to take me a long time. On a much more realistic note, I feel like this temple comfortably fits 39. If the fire marshal came by and said a maximum occupancy side on the wall outside of the building, it would probably say something like 39. I think that works for this set. So a far cry from hundreds comfortably, but yeah, if you really want to go overboard, you can fit hundreds. $1,600 is very expensive for a Lego set. To put that in perspective, that is twice as expensive as the most expensive Lego Star Wars set ever released at just $800. Of course, there's a lot of different factors at play with custom sets that you don't have with actual Lego sets, or that are mitigated by the absolute crazy mass production of actual Lego sets, but you don't have that economies of scale here, and as such, these things can get really pricey really fast. Again, with code Newport, you can take $200 off, but that still leaves you at $1,400, and that is just a tough price to swallow. If you've been dead set on getting a Jedi Temple, I think it's very good. I really, this might be one of the best sets Republic Bricks has put out to date, with only a couple flaws really in there. That being said, it is just a really tough call. $1,400 is not an easy amount of money to spend on anything, and obviously me having gotten it for free makes it really hard for me to sit here and tell you whether or not you should spend your hard-earned $1,400 on it. That's a decision that ultimately lies on you. If you want a Jedi Temple, it doesn't look like Lego is ever going to cave in and give us a cheaper option. Of course, it's possible, but we all know how Lego operates at this point. If you have the money, I don't think you'd be disappointed picking this thing up, but this is really for the biggest of the biggest Lego and Star Wars fans. This is not an entry-level set. You got to be pretty ingrained, or at least I would think you need to be pretty ingrained into Lego Star Wars collecting to go out and buy something like this, but it is gorgeous. I really love it. I wish it would fit on my shelf back here, but it is a little too deep, so it doesn't quite fit back there. So I'm going to have to find a nice spot for it someday, but for now, it'll probably go away into storage. Let me know what y'all think about this Jedi Temple in the comments section below. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future custom Lego Star Wars reviews from Republic Bricks. I have a ton more lined up, like I showed earlier in this video. About $5,000 worth of sets came in the other day, and I have a lot of building ahead of me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.